So next up, we're going to learn how to hold the flute. If you're right-handed, like I am, you're going to make the flute jut off to the right. If you're left-handed, you're going to make the flute jut off to the left. So if you're right-handed like me, you're going to have the embouchure hole kind of in front of your face, and you're going to take your right hand and put it at the end of the flute. And you're going to take your left hand and kind of jut it out in front of you, and then reach around to grab the middle of the flute. So you're going to want to do this naturally with the tips of your fingers. You're going to want to grab it in whatever way is the most comfortable for you. And there are many different ways to do this. So you're going to have multiple points of contact whenever you're holding a flute. And we're just going to focus on that for a second. And that's going to be your pinky, your right pinky, your right thumb, your left thumb, your left pointer finger, and then your chin. So next we're going to place our fingers on these tone holes in the correct order. Your pointer finger on your left hand is going to cover the B tone hole. We have been playing C sharp. And then the A tone hole with your middle finger, the G tone hole with your ring finger. You're going to just make your left hand's pinky just kind of dangle for a moment. A lot of people who play simple system flutes honestly do just let their pinky finger do whatever it feels like. You're going to use the right hand pointer finger to cover up the F sharp tone hole, and then the right hand middle finger to cover up the E tone hole, and then the right hand ring finger to cover up the D tone hole. This one can be a little bit hard for people to reach, but we'll get there as we explain the different grips that you can adopt. But knowing where your fingers are supposed to go is going to help in the long run. Now, whenever I was first starting out, a classical player said to take your thumbs, hold them up like this, thumbs up, and then turn them to your left. And you're going to reach your fingers out, and you're just going to hold the flute like that. And it works on a simple system flute. I don't know how she was using a Bohm flute that way, but who knows? It worked for her, I guess. So there are many different types of grips that people use. The one that I do, which I will show you, is my left hand is gripping on the pad of my hand here, curving my pointer finger around and holding it like that. The thumb is just going straight up, and on the side of the thumb is where I'm actually holding the flute there. So I could hold it just with my hand like this, and I could honestly play a little bit. Just with my left hand like that. Some people, like Kevin Crawford, who I've had the absolute pleasure of meeting at the Dallas Irish Festival, play with their thumb underneath it, just like that method I said before, where the thumbs are going this way, which I kind of started out with. But whenever you move from a normal keyless flute to a keyed one, and you want a B flat note, there's a key back here that your thumb has to be able to reach in order to work, which I find a little bit difficult for future-proofing your flute playing. But if you're just going to stick to keyless stuff, this honestly is a perfectly fine grip, and Kevin Crawford honestly makes it work somehow, so something must be good with it. So I'm not going to judge on any of these hand holds in any way. They work for some people, just not for me. To where that's my left hand. As you can see, mine actually looks a little bit more like Colin Stewart because my tips of my fingers can actually bend. I don't know if everybody's can do that or not, but mine do, and my ring finger on my left hand particularly bends whenever I'm playing, just like Colin Stewart, who is also one of my absolute favorite flute players. This wasn't purposeful, it's just ended up being comfortable for me. Some people will actually play with their fingertips in the tone holes, a little bit like Shannon Heaton and a couple other flute players that aren't really coming to mind. They will actually stab the tips of their fingers into the tone hole on the left hand, and then moving on to the right hand, this is where some things get a little interesting. A lot of people, and I mean a lot of people like Shannon Heaton, will actually play with their fingers completely flat on the right hand. And the way that they achieve it is either by just having different shaped hands, which everyone has different shaped hands. So my grip might not work for you because your fingertips are usually different from person to person. My ring finger is shorter than both my pointer and my middle. Some people's are even, Some people's vary back and forth, like the pointer finger is shorter than the rest, and so on and so forth, to where you use what grip fits you the best by all means, and there's a reason why people have different grips for flutes. Is because everybody's got really varied hands, honestly. One thing that you'll learn about the flute is the fact that it is a very in particular instrument to you. There's plenty of like guitar players, like this is the only way you can play. If you want to be good, you want to play this, and you want to use your hands like this, and you want to do this thing. Whenever it comes to flute, it's so particular on how your body is shaped. So with the left hand, what I do is I put the very tip of my thumb underneath the flute in order to try and hold it up, and the pinky to also help anchor my hand here. Sometimes it lifts up and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on how I'm feeling at that point. As you can see, my middle finger is actually quite arched, and my pointer finger kind of lifts off to the left as opposed to like kind of straight up and down. But many flute players will have their middle finger extended to where it is completely flat, and it works really well for those people. But there are plenty of other people like Matt Malloy himself who have kind of an arched ring finger so that the pads of their fingers will play entirely on the flute. Some people will absolutely play with piper's grip, which is where you are playing with the middle knuckle. Instead of the pads, you're playing with the knuckle just behind the pads of your fingers, and it looks a little something like this from the top view. People play it that way and absolutely rock that style. Now, some people actually play off of their shoulder, where they have another point of holding up the flute for them. And these are people like Michael McGoldrick. They're completely famous, and they work really well with flute playing, and they actually get paid and so on. So it's got to be doing something right, you know? So you can't judge too harshly, to where if you want to play off of your shoulder, that is absolutely something you can do.